ụlọ nsọ gị Chukwu ka anyị na-abata, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Anya bịawa ịsọpụrụ gị ugbu a, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Chukwu nna n'ụlọ gị ka anyị na-akpọ gị, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Otito na-adịrị gị mgbe niile, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike.
Otito niile dịrị Chineke, ụbọchị dị elu, Chukwu obiọma, chi dị ebere, Olisa nwa amara, ka ụzọ anyị niile ọbụla bụrụ ihe, ka ihe ọbụla kpatara aka bụrụ sọ mma, ka ụwa niile site n'ozi ọma anyị a nwụsị obi aṅụrị taa na mgbe niile ebighị ebi. Ọfọ ya gazie ise. All praises to Chi the Creator, the Supreme Being, Chi the Good, Chi the Merciful, Chi the Magnificent, with grace. Let every way of our lives be light. Let all our acts be crowned with good. May the world prosper from our ministry, now and forever. So let it be. Amen.
And so it is. Mama, good morning to you. How are you?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Every day above ground is a good day. So I'm a happy guy right now because of the opportunity that today presents. So
yes. I am so grateful. You know, I always tell people, don't look at what you don't have. Don't look at the bad things that have happened. Look at what you do have, where you are right now. Many did not see this day. We are the lucky few. And for that, we give thanks. And for that, we thank Chineke for this wonderful opportunity to be walking amongst the living. Let us remember, if you didn't get it right yesterday, you have another opportunity to get it right today. Chineke for this opportunity to inhale and exhale. How beautiful is that, eh? I am excited to.
It's just beautiful.
That is indeed beautiful.
Right. Yes.
Yes. You know, we have a wonderful show today. I'm excited about today because you know what? To me, it's almost like we are at a point in our lives that we have to reinvent ourselves. We must reinvent ourselves. And to reinvent ourselves, we must reinvent how we raise our children, how we raise our children. Before we have that conversation, I'd like to bring in our special guest today. Here he is, Musa Ododo Abdul Rahman. How are you?
Welcome.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Great.
Mother.
Nice to meet you, Musa. Nice to meet you.
Greetings
My
with
pleasure.
humility and deepest reverence to you, Mama. I'm so
Thank you.
blissful to be here today, and greetings to you with all humility.
Yes.
My great revered brother.
Yes,
He's great.
Musa. Yes, Musa.
I'm humble to be. I'm humble to be before you today. Thank you
So are we.
much.
So are we. Thank you for gracing us
I
with
just
your
want to
presence.
let you know, Musa is the two things he is. He's the president of the National Dialogue, okay, for Nigeria. He is
Nice.
promoting, the whole concept is that you cannot lead people that you don't dialogue with. You need to know what the people need. Who are you leading? How can you make their lives better? How can they play a role in the whole scheme of things as opposed to just leading? We have to, and also reinvent how we think as Nigerians. Who are we? When you say you're Nigerian, what exactly does that mean? Nigeria is not just a landmass. Nigeria is made up of people. And so we must connect with those people. We must talk to them. The leadership must be in touch with the individuals that they're leading. That's how we can become, all of us become proud Nigerians and understand exactly what the challenges are and how we can solve them. But we have to solve them together. Umoja, the spirit of Umoja, unity. This is how we can make Nigeria good. So thank you, Musa. And Musa has been on every television show in Nigeria. He's quite a popular man. And we are privileged to have him.
Fortunate and privileged to have him. So
beautiful. And he's also the liaison. He's the international liaison for the African Women Mobilization Commission. As a matter of fact, he was the man who introduced me to all the Nigerian leaders we have right now in our ONSE. It was him.
Nice.
So we are very, very grateful to have him. Thank you, Musa. This is an exciting. This is an exciting show. Global Futures, preparing the next generation for the 21st century. Think about that. There's an African proverb. You're very familiar with it because our father said it all there. I always said it. As you have a child, your child is supposed to be greater than you.
Yes. Always.
You don't want your child right where you are. You want your child to be greater than you.
Yes.
And then there's another proverb that says, the okra tree can never be higher than the person who planted them, right? Because you can bring that okra tree down, but that's a whole different concept. One is for discipline purposes.
Yes.
If you misbehave, I'll bring you right back down. That's what that one is saying. The other one, on the other hand, is saying the future is in your hands. So it's my responsibility to make sure that you're greater than I am.
Yes.
But we need to ask ourselves today, are our children going to be greater than we are? How are we raising these children? Yes. It is not enough to say what people did to us. We know what they did.
Yeah, it's no secret.
We know. That's not the issue. We know what they did and we know who they are. But what are we doing? Before we hold the conversation, I want to introduce to the audience, listening audience, those who are going to be with us this morning and those who are not going to, who are going to watch eventually. I just want to remind you that an educated person doesn't necessarily have education from a Eurocentric perspective. If you have pride in yourself, if you teach your child how to be proud of who he is, that is who he's going to be as an adult. That's who she's going to be as an adult. But if you teach the child to be a follower, to live the life of others, that's who he or she is going to be. I want to introduce you to this fine gentleman, Thomas Sankara. All of us know him. Thomas
Sankara.
Sankara was the president of Burkina Faso, who he was murdered. And he ruled Burkina Faso from 1983 to 1987. Okay. He was assassinated October 15th, 1957. This
87.
gentleman, 1987, that's when he died. That's when he was assassinated. He didn't go to a fancy European school. He went to a village school. His father was not a learned man, but his father understood that it was important. Whatever it is that you are, whatever it is you're doing, be the best you can for the benefit of your people.
Yes, sir.
This is the difference between those who are disciplined, those who are trained within the culture, both the spiritual and all other cultural aspects of their communities. They end up like Thomas Sankara, doing all that they can to uplift their people. Unfortunately, he was assassinated because of his love for his people. But you see, there's a saying that you can take a man out, but you cannot kill a vision.
Yep.
You can take him out. There's always somebody else who is watching, and that person is now the person who is running Ibrahim Traore. They call him Thomas Sankara reincarnated. Pardon me, let me bring him back in. Ibrahim Traore. This man is doing exactly what Sankara did, and that is to put his people ahead of anything. He risks his life. He let the foreign world leave Burkina Faso and using all the resources for the good of his own people. He did not go to a fancy European school. He went to a school in the village, a local school. The difference is he was taught the importance of nation building, and he also learned from Sankara. Now, what this man is doing in Burkina Faso is what history is made of. He's done security reforms in response to all the violence of terrorism, and he found out that it was actually the terrorists were being paid by the outside world to do all of that, to create all that confusion. So now he's fighting it. He's made so many anti-corruption efforts, social programs, economic development initiatives. This man is doing things that nobody thought he could do. Nobody thought you could do in Africa. But he's doing it. This is what happens when we educate our children from our own perspective. Now, I want you to tell me how many of our people who are educated through Eurocentric ways are doing great in Africa. When you guys speak, you tell me which one. I'll be more than excited to hear. This is what happens when we train our children from our own perspective to love who they are, to build, to fail, and to succeed. It's perfectly okay. Now, in China, the Chinese, I'm going to play this video. I hope it comes out real good. If it doesn't, we'll just talk about it. In China, the children are being raised to be leaders in the 21st century. Let me play this video so you can see what kindergartners are doing in China. Things that we're not even doing in high school for our children.
vegetables and meat. They can also make noodles, filling sausages, and even grinding soybean milk. After they cook the meals, they also would clean everything up. The netizen said that after they graduate kindergarten, they already have 3 years of work experience. Would you send your kids to this kind of kindergarten?
I apologize that
The volume.
I think kindergarten is just about playtime. Think again. In China, kids are solving problems, working in teams, and learning skills that'll blow your mind. Watch as these adorable little geniuses show us how task-based learning is shaping the future. Is this the secret to success? Let's find out.
The most popular class among Chinese children is life skill class. Unlike traditional rote learning, this curriculum teaches kids to cut hair and even farm. Located in Jiangsu, China, this kindergarten has shifted its classroom from indoors to outdoors. Under the guidance of teachers, children learn to grow vegetables and flowers, cut hair, make clothes, arrange flowers, cook.
the internet is acting up, so it's not allowing me to. Let's see. I'm going to remove it. We'll just talk about it. Give me 1 second to remove it and add the Dibias back. I'm having UD. I'm trying to add UD back in.
Okay, I'm back here.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure why that's acting up like that. But like I said, the internet here is just acting up. But the gist of it is that these children are being taught, first and foremost, life skills. All right? They learn how to cook. They learn how to cut hair. They learn how to clean. They know how to do everything. They even learn how to lay bricks.
You're frozen. Anyway, she's frozen right now. Can you hear me, Musa?
Yes, she's frozen. I can hear you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, we'll just continue our conversation. I think what she's really, saying is, first of all, the educational system in China is different from what you see in most countries in the Black world in Africa. And,
yes.
And that is because in Africa, in a lot of African communities, we don't have a sense of nationalism, right? You don't have a sense of unity. You don't feel like you're unified under a common focus, right? What are we, for example, in Nigeria as a country, what are we focusing on as Hausa people, as Fulani people, as Igbo, as Yoruba, as Calabar, Ijo, what have you, all these different ethnic groups that you have, but all of us wearing the same skin color. Where is the sense of nationalism when it comes to Nigeria? For example, if I say I'm Nigerian, I have to say that with gusto, with a sense of pride. I need to be able to stick my chest out and say it. And the reason why I'm saying it is because I feel a sense of unity with the Yoruba, with the Hausa, with the Fulani, with the Ijaw, with the Calabar, with everybody as one, as a unit, as unified under a common focus, which is economic and social development, right? We have to look at ourselves as people that have the same goals, united under something. Just having organizations like Organization of African Unity, when they formed the OAU, which is a byproduct of Pan-Africanism, right? Which is really what this whole thing is all about, where a movement that seeks to unite people of African descent all over the world.
Yeah.
See, the Jamaican is concerned about the Haitian. The Haitian is concerned about the African American. The African American is concerned about the Nigerian. The Nigerian is concerned about the Jamaican. But this concern is not a concern about, oh, I care about what happens to the Ghanaian. I care about what happens to the Jamaican. There's a concern of looking at each one of these people from different, communities in the Black world as competitors, as opposed to looking at ourselves as people with the same hue that face the same prejudices, right? If you're not united, if you're not unified, if you don't see yourself marching in the same direction, we can't get anywhere. You cannot establish institutions that are geared towards the upliftment of people of African ancestry. We don't have any cultural institutions in Africa, for example, that is responsible or is charged with teaching things that are culturally and historically relevant. You know, when you learn history in Africa, at least when I was coming up, when we learned history, most of the history that we learned was from the colonial perspective of things, and you're always looking at yourself, from a position of want, help me, give me, help me to get better. I can't help myself. If you don't help me, I'm dead. As opposed to saying, how can we help ourselves?
Yeah.
How can we do it? Right? But this has to come from a concerted effort. It has to be grassroots. And grassroots usually is an educational process. So you have to have educational institutions that keep that in mind as you try to develop an educational system that does justice to the younger generation coming up, so that they are grounded in their culture, in their history, in who they are. So that when we talk about African history and you talk about the history of any specific ethnic group in sub-Saharan Africa, go back 1,000 years, go back 2,000 years. Just don't go back to the times of colonization or slavery and then look at African history from that perspective. What were we before they came? What did we do before colonizations? What civilizations existed in Africa before Islam came in? Before Christianity came? Who were we? And because of this foreign incursion, we have lost a sense of who we are as a people. And the way we identify ourselves now is based on the boundaries that were created by our slave masters and our colonial masters. They created those boundaries. I mean, Nigeria as a country, we didn't create it. Lord Lugard and his elk, they're the ones that did that stuff. We didn't do that. But they put us in with different people that, were convinced by the colonial masters that they were better than the other. The Igbo is better than the Hausa is better than the Fulani is better than the Igbo, Yoruba is better than the Hausa. But that's all we're dealing with. And we're a country, and we're supposed to rise to face the hell that is called the West. All the assassinations that happened in Africa, when our great leaders like Patrice Lumumba were assassinated because they were Pan-African thinkers, they were trying to unite us under a common focus. Development in everything that we do from the African perspective, not from a perspective of people that were colonized or enslaved. We know what happened to us. We understand what happened to us. But it's time now to do something with this knowledge. It starts with education. It starts with a system that cares about its citizens. It starts with a Pan-African mindset that seeks to unite people of African descent around the world.
Absolutely.
That's what we need to be, dealing with right now to be able to put this whole thing together. What do you think?
Absolutely. You're right. You're very, very right. In fact, that is what that is all about what we are doing. I think she's back now.
Yeah, but go ahead with your thoughts.
Okay, that is exactly what we are doing in our organization.
Yeah.
That we that and that I had been doing that for when I came to that realization that what you call a great nation, what you call a unified nation, do not happen by historical accident. They are product of a conscious statecraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been doing that for over 30 years of my life.
Wow.
That thank God is coming to become the
Reality.
national consciousness is coming. Is arising now. That where everyone is at least we are happy now. Though we feel very few of us, because you know this kind of a thing, it takes very few people to it is special calling that not
Mm-hmm.
everyone will have that of understanding.
Yes, true.
So the first question we are trying to resolve is is what you just spoke about. We ask 5 pertinent questions to
Mm.
becoming a nation. That great nation do not happen by historical accident. They are product of a conscious statecraft and 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 exceptional people or leader, if you like, that had transformed their society and altered the course of history for their generation, had combined wisdom and power in the practice of that statecraft.
Yes.
That nations are created. If you do not consciously create one, you can never build any. This is a universal eternal principle that is applicable to all society on earth.
Absolutely.
It is a law of nature. But it takes an exceptional mind. It takes people, because development is first spiritual before it becomes mental and physical. So that is why, and that is why we now the project that we're doing that has taken that thank God is taking is coming to national. Everyone is talking about it now. Is called national dialogue. That we let us exploit the most powerful. I call it the most powerful power in nature, and that is the power of the collective.
Yes.
That if we need to get it right, we must, just like you hinge on it, unity. We must come as a people. And I thought about it so much for many years. For many years, I've been meditating upon this great entity called Nigeria. And I just knew that, yes, just like I said, the British, the colonial master brought us together. But I know that there's no accident in nature. Yes, through the instrumentality of British imperialism, nature has brought us together. But what can we do with ourselves now?
Yes.
Because I know
Yes.
there's not, and just like you said, we're not going to be talking about our colonial masters, but what can we do now? What can we really do as a people now?
Yeah.
And that's to look, and that is for us to come together. And I see the trajectory of the history. Yes, when our great founding fathers, yes, they tried to give us an independent country. Yes, as it is, that is where, but independent, but freedom is not a given. And independent can be given. Yes, go and be independent. But when you talk about freedom, freedom is not a given, and freedom cannot really be taken out of person. Meaning that we must begin to and we realize that the fundamental that is the fundamental challenges of life, and fundamental challenges of life cannot be solved with the same state of consciousness or knowledge level that created them. So the exigencies of the time that we are now, the exigencies of our time demands that we must begin to exploit the inner dimension of our intelligence as a true human being that God Almighty has created us. And I knew that how do we do it? How do you exploit that inner dimension of intelligence? That is inside, is innate. There's no the challenges of Nigeria cannot be solved by our colonial master that would still look up to today. No, we need to start looking inward.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
how do
Absolutely.
we exploit that? That is why we started that national policy dialogue, and we call it dialogue with wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Dialogue with wisdom. Yes, we call it dialogue with wisdom. You see, dialogue wisdom is a is a profound and timeless dialogue with wisdom is a profound and timeless precept that has guided human civilization through their most challenging periods. This is not a merely come together and discuss and share exchange of ideas. It is an elevated conversation that delves into the deeper dimension of our collective consciousness, inner understanding, and moral or ethical values. This form of dialogue invites every citizen, leader, and community to listen, reflect, and act from a place of higher understanding, ensuring that our actions are aligned with universal values that benefit all. The outcome of this dialogue will be a foundation upon which real peace, durable unity, and a true human civilization can be built. And that is why we said we're calling for it. There must be a dialogue. We must have a dialogue. I will call it it's a peculiar dialogue. We call dialogue with wisdom. And that is how it has been in I have studied every that available to me. There's available to me all civilization, the one that have risen and fallen. I see that at the heart of everything, there must be a dialogue. And it happened during even when the colonial master wanted to shift from our founding fathers, there was a dialogue. And I look into our history because if you want to know where you are headed, you must know where you're coming from. History is very, 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 very important. If you want to know where you're going in life, you must know where you're headed. You must learn from history. You will not repeat these challenges again.
Absolutely.
And that is what we have seen. If you see the founding father, they had a dialogue with the Nigerian family. They had a dialogue with the colonial masters. If you look at the one of the most important documents of any people is one of the most important founding documents is the Declaration of Independence. The first Nigeria, the first Prime Minister, Nigeria Prime Minister, Alhaji Tafawa Abubakar Balewa said during the Declaration of Independence, he said, and I quote, "Today's ceremony marks the culmination of a process which began 15 years ago, and it has now reached a happy and sustained conclusion. It is with justifiable pride that we claim the achievement of our independence to be unparalleled in the annals of history." He now went further to say that this great country that has now emerged without bitterness or bloodshed. Let me quickly corroborate that with his great compatriots, our great founding father, the great Zig of Africa. His reaction to the first coup held 15 January 1966. He said, and I quote, "Violence has never been an instrument used by our founding father to solve political problems. In the British tradition, we talk the colonial office into accepting our challenges for the demerit and merit of our case for self-government. After 6 functional conferences in 1953, 1954, 1957, 1958, 1959, 1966, the Great Britain, 1960, the Great Britain considered to us the right to assert our political independence from October 1st, 1960. None of the political parties ever adopted violence means to gain our political freedom. And we are happy to claim that not a blood of the British or Nigerian blood was shed in the course of our national struggle for our place in the sun." And I look backward and I had asked people that are older than me, like to be my grandfather. I said, where did we get it wrong? And what happened? And I came, just like I said before, when I said, and I came and I refined that my realization again after my over decades of meditation upon this great entity, Nigeria, that verily those great men bequeathed a great country to us. But a country is not a nation. It is a human person that is a nation. A country transcends what a geographical area. It is we that is a nation, that human we are. You are the nation. I am the nation. So how do we? So it is a collective consciousness and aspiration of a people that is a nation. So we must, to bring about that a nation that will have that consciousness of that people. There must be a conscious creation of that new consciousness, and that is what we've been about.
Thank you, and
thank you.
Oh, I love it. And
Beautiful.
you cannot do that without instilling that in your children. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't, because
absolutely
when you look to the future, it's these children that are going to make your dreams, your vision become a reality. But if you're not preparing them to see that vision, they'll hold on to whatever it is they've been taught. It is my pleasure to welcome Dibias Dozier. Thank you so very much, Musa. We'll bring you back in, and please don't go anywhere, and because you have so much to share. Dibias Dozier, welcome. How are you?
Look
Look
up
at you.
to the
Royal.
kid.
I'm fine. Good afternoon.
Yeah,
You're
guys,
looking all
yeah.
royal.
Yeah, sorry I joined late.
That's okay. That's
That's
okay. You
okay.
know,
Yeah,
the fact that
coming from a function in town.
Yeah, better
someone
late
that
than
you look
never.
for a
You
leader.
look great, by the way. Look at that hat. I mean, you look absolutely smashing. Look at
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Dibia Chedozie, you've heard what Musa said and what Dibia Yudi Chua just said. Just awesome. But the topic, where did we go? Okay, the topic again is global features preparing the next generation for the 21st century. What are your thoughts on that, Dibia Chedozie?
Well, we are talking about the African child, and I must say one thing. We are not prepared. I am not sounding downcast. I'm only trying to be blunt so that we'll begin to address what we never addressed before. We have not addressed the question of who we are. We haven't at all. Our founding fathers tried to do so, but they didn't do it well because they tried to do it within the colonial enclave given to them. They did not understand that colonialism had one aim: destruction of the foundation of the African. For instance, Nigeria, when the colonial masters came, before they came, each ethnic group thrived on its own. There were wars and some interminglings and interregnums and so on and so forth. Yes, but we were evolving according to our own trajectory. Now, colonialism put a stop to that and diverted us away from our own trajectory towards a common trajectory that is Europe-ward, not ours. And so our founding fathers, quote and unquote, because I don't regard those people that we call founding fathers, I don't regard them as founding fathers. They didn't found Nigeria. Rather, they took over baton from the founders of Nigeria. The founders of Nigeria, we know, is the English, the British.
Yep, the British.
So they did not refound Nigeria. They needed to have refound Nigeria because what was given to us was flag independence. And if one reads Chinwenzu's The West and the Rest of Us, you get a clear picture because Chinwenzu made the analysis that the princess that was sent to hand over the baton of administration from the colonial master to the governor general of Nigeria was a smiling princess, meaning, yes, we have just dipped these people in. We just got them exactly where we wanted them. And if I've forgotten the writer of the one-eyed man is king in the country of the blind. It's a Briton who wrote that particular book. And the analysis there is that in the country of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And the analysis there is that the British has made us exactly what they wanted us to be. And we are just towing along without making a reevaluation.
Yes. And
I have written papers to this effect. I took on Nkrumah's conscientism and this question of his, the backbone of his methodology, which he calls the categorical conversion. And it's like all so-called founding fathers, those who inherited the baton of leadership for the colonial masters, they all keyed into that question of categorical conversion. And the categorical conversion, what was the intent? The intent was to make Africans to become modernized. And the way to do it is to try to harmonize the essentials. There we go back to William Abraham's cultural essentialism. Harmonize the essentials from the different cultures and build a new culture. Even Kwame Gechi, and one of his works, wrote on the type 1 of society, type 2 of society, type 3 of society. And I took a swipe on all of this because we are trying to swim against the tide of the ocean. And it is easier to swim along the tide than swimming against the tide. because we are doing what is not historical. It is not historical for human beings to manage what they did not create. So the first thing we have, the founding fathers were supposed to have done was to restore us as much as possible to our cultural structures, so that we begin to build from it. That way, the question of identity will be addressed. Up to this moment, 65 years later, 70 years later, 67 years later, 70 years later, for some, according to when different African countries got their independence, there is no true African independent country today. And if you look at contemporary scholarship in the age of globalization, there is this subtleness to replace discourses on the question of alienation, neocolonialism, globalization with Afropolitanism. And Afropolitanism is addressing Africans who have lost touch with their culture and they are fitted into other people's culture, and they seem to live comfortably in other people's culture. So you see half-breed Africans mixing cultures that they don't quite understand. They are not thorough English, they are not thorough Igbo, they are not thorough Yoruba, they are not thorough Americans, they are not thorough Ashanti, they are not thorough Indians. So you're having these new breed of Africans coming up. And if we don't do anything to address this problem today, that is what Africans are going to be in the next 20, 30 years. Because by 2050, if we refuse to address the problems, the fundamental problems of alienation, the fundamental problems of colonization, the fundamental problem of balkanization, and make sure that African people sit squarely and roundly within their cultural confine and begin to grow according to their cultural trajectory, the problem we have in America, whereby we talk about African Americans, a general name for Africans, irrespective of their different cultural backgrounds, that's where we are going. Even in Africa, because that's what Afropolitanism means. Africans that have lost root, they have lost touch with their roots, their foundations, and so they are rootless. And so they have to develop new roots, adventitious roots, just to hang on, like epiphytes, what we call Nhekoro in our language. That is the Yorubas will say afobon, plants that don't have roots to the ground, but they have to grow on other plants. So they depend on other plants for existence, and that's the kind of thing we're pushing towards. So for me, if we want to address the question of the future of the African child squarely, we have to address it within our cultural confines.
That's right.
Because even when was it? That was about 3 days ago. I sat with my older professors. No, we went to see, that was on the 7th, which was just 2 days ago, the 7th of this month. That was on Friday. I was one of my professor teachers who taught me, who's now retired, who went for his 80th birthday. Professor Ezekiel Kolawole Ogudawale, who invented the ideology of, he developed the ideology of self-relianceism. Now, and he told us that if we did not do anything to address the question of the future of Africa after 2015, there will be no authentic African left. So that keys exactly to what we are discussing today.
Yeah.
So if you look at the example of the Chinese that you gave, well, if they key into the program of STEM, science, technology, and all of that, they do so within the Chinese culture, Chinese ontology. Yes. They have not lost touch with their ontology. They have not lost touch with their cosmology. If I am looking to my left here in my office, there's a Chinese calendar here. And the calendar It does not say anything about January, February. It doesn't say anything about Monday, Tuesday.
Yep.
They are doing it. It's purely Chinese culture.
Yes,
And if
sir.
I also go out of my office, to the left of my faculty is a Chinese Institute of Confucius Studies, that is expanding. Meanwhile, there is no Institute of African Study here.
Oh my God! Say it again. Oh
yes,
my
so we start.
And then if there is an Institute of African, if there's an Institute of African Studies here, it is not sponsored by us. It is sponsored. It is sponsored by different people. Yesterday it was Germany. Today it is the British. Next tomorrow is the Canadians. Another time it will be the US people. Another time it will be Russia. Another time it will be Japan. Another time it will be China. Another time it will be Mecca. That means we are just like harlots being hired, or call girls being hired by whoever has the money. So my question is, that how we are going to talk about the future of the African child? So I leave it hanging here because I just did this so that we can throw up more discourses.
Yes, this is why I felt this was very important. I share something that really, it's supposed to be a comedy. A woman who features her children. Her children are trying to speak Igbo, okay? And it's comedic how they're speaking Igbo because they really don't know how. So they say a little Igbo, then they throw in English. It's so hodgepodge, and people are laughing. And to me, there's nothing funny about that, because you're an Igbo man, you are an Igbo mother, and your children can't speak Igbo, but you're featuring them on TikTok in their vulnerabilities, in their vulnerable state, as something comedic. People are laughing and teasing them for not being able to speak the language. You, the Igbo mother and the Igbo father, you're sitting there laughing. There's nothing funny about that. You, as a matter of fact, you are making them think that there's something wrong with them learning their language because they don't get it, they're not doing it properly. And you find it's funny. It's not funny when they speak English. That's perfectly okay. But it's funny when they speak Igbo because they don't do it right. One of the significant areas of concern for me, because I'm a professor and I teach African American students, and it really is so sad when we ask them to cite their sources. Many of these African American students do not cite any African authors. They just cite European authors because that's what the school has made available, and that's what they've been told is the right thing to do. But I insist, you have to, if you present a paper to me, you must cite an African author so that I know that you are taking a little bit of your time to learn about how your own people think. You know, there's such a lack of emphasis on self-acceptance and appreciation with our children. You know, there's insufficient focus, okay, on helping Black kids embrace who they are, their identities. And I'm telling you, at this time in our lives, this is a very important time here for us who live in the United States. They're removing even any African history in schools. They're not teaching them African history. Anything that involves Black people is considered DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But that's not supposed to be a negative thing. It's not just Black people, people of color, even women. So we're negating Africanness. Any school that teaches African culture is penalized by having the funds taken from them. So at some point, we need to ask them, if they don't want you in their schools, why are you sending your children there? Many schools are excluding African history from the curriculum, forcing students to learn primarily Eurocentric history and perspectives. So if that is the case, is this not the time for us to say, okay, we need to teach our children who they are so that they can become the job creators, not the people who are focused on getting European education so you can go and work for the master. I hate to put it that way, but that's just literally what it is. The omission profoundly affects how children perceive themselves. And if they go to a school where the lessons are not taught about any values about their heritage, and here we are in our own Nigeria, in our own countries, we don't teach them how to embrace their heritage. So they struggle with the focus. That is a focus that they don't have. So they struggle with it when it's introduced to them, like this mother, trying to introduce Igbo and English mixed together as a form of comedy. Now, to some degree, yeah, I think it's fun to have fun now and then. I have no problems with that. But I just think that when that is all we're doing, making fun of our own children, and we think that their education is worth something, only when it's European. Have you, when you go out and you see our children going to school, what do you see? They are dressed in coat and tie, or they dressed there with socks and shoes, and But in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore has made it clear: you wear African clothing. He doesn't even want you around him if you don't wear African clothing. The whole purpose is to regenerate in our minds, if I use that expression, the need to focus on who we are so that we know where we're going and we can prepare our children. I am concerned, and I say this as a professor, I am concerned that our children are not learning anything that's going to benefit the African community, not here in America, not there in Africa, not there anywhere in the world, unless, and it's not being racist. That's not what it is at all. If I am strong, then any community that I'm in, I'll be strong as well. People should appreciate me as a strong person, not as a leech, not as somebody who says, oh, I've got to know you and be you so that I will matter. Now, Yudi, I want you to talk about the fact that this excessive, I could be wrong, but perhaps you agree with me, there's an excessive pressure on our children to conform to European standards, not just in education, but in everything. We're talking about the Chinese and how they're raising their children, through Chinese perspectives and concepts, and teaching them life skills in addition to STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, blah, all of that. But a lot of our children are focused on not just Eurocentric educational systems, but even the spiritual one. The spiritual one. What are your thoughts on that? The focus on spirituality that is foreign to our children. What impact does that have on their lives? That's for you.
It's everything. It's everything. And that is one of the tragedies of people when we ask questions about what's wrong with Africa, what's wrong with the people. Why is it that we're not keeping up with the 20th century, let alone the 21st? Even though a lot of our educated, folks, scientists and all that are all abroad working for somebody else, building for them as opposed to building for us. Ahaike Okonyo, my father, one of his lectures had said that a people without a spiritual culture don't exist, right?
Yes.
A people without a spiritual culture don't exist. And I'm going to, go back to this statement in a little bit. But if you look at Africa, if you look at Nigeria, if you look at the Black community in general, we see the same symptoms, corruption, disunity, bad leadership, violence, terrible schools, no emphasis on African culture, traditions, stuff like that. None of that stuff. And I remember I had a conversation with you one time, and that conversation had to deal with malaria. And the conversation was about, if you have malaria, that has a lot of symptoms, like the same kind of symptoms that we have in our communities with the corruption and the bad leadership and all that. And you have malaria. And to know or to diagnose malaria, there are certain symptoms that have to be evident, like, fever, aches and pains, chills, vomiting, and all that kind of stuff. And then you ask the question, when you have malaria, is your problem the symptoms? When Africa and our Black communities are the way they are, is it because of corruption? Is it because of bad leadership? Do you have malaria because of the fever? Or is there a larger problem? Is there another reason why you have those symptoms, like a mosquito or the parasite that the mosquito puts into you? And then when the mosquito puts that parasite into you, the Arab puts the Quran in you, and the European puts Christianism, the Bible, in you. You end up with the symptoms that you see in our community today: the corruption, the bad leadership, the violence, the bad schools, the loss of emphasis on things that are African, no understanding of what Pan-Africanism means. That it is important that we seek to unite people of African descent all over the world. There's another book, there's a book, African Guardianism, my father wrote. Let me just read something to you from it. It says that today, Black Africa is in search of restoration of her lost cultural personality and civilization. And this was the purpose of the second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, FESTAC. Everywhere in the world and throughout the histories of all nations and races, religion had formed the rallying ground, rallying ground, I sound like the South African president, for the scattered and divided peoples of various races and nations, like the Jews who rallied to Judaism in their hours of national stress, and the Arabs who declare holy war or jihad and rally to the shibboleths of Mohammedanism or Islam, when the interests of the Arabs as a race are at stake. The Indians have Buddhism and the Chinese have Confucianism to harmonize the Indians and the Chinese into unity and joint actions in their respective hours of national tribulations. Of all the races of mankind, only the Black African race still parade the world, borrowing the isms of other races without making any effort to abstract a philosophy, a spiritual philosophy from the principles served by her own behavioral traditions under which the sons and daughters of Africa can harmonize their seemingly different cultural traditions and rally in unity for joint action when the existence of the Black race is threatened. That's our problem. There's nothing to unify us. Now, how do you unify a people? Race plays a role. Language plays a role. Religion, culture plays a role. Mm-hmm. And geography plays a role. But you got to have at least one of these four things for any attempt of unification. Now, if you could do all four, God, just think of how far ahead we will be as people of African ancestry. So everything that you see that is going on in Africa, the fact that our governments are corrupt, the fact that we're not united under any kind of focus, the bad schools, the violence, the infighting, the Muslims fighting the Christians and the Christians fighting the Muslims over religious philosophies that have nothing to do with the Black African. Jesus is not from Ghana. Muhammad did not come from Nigeria or Kenya. Whatever they did when they lived had nothing to do with us. We had our own spirituality, our own religion, our own philosophies before the Arab and the European came to our shores with the Quran and the Bible in tow. Who were we? How far does the history of the African go? When you go to school, you go to a kindergarten or primary school or high school or universities in Nigeria or in Africa. What are you teaching about African history? How far back do we go? What do you know about Black Africa 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago? And if you can't pinpoint that and you have a change of heart and you decide today that you want to emphasize everything African above everything else, if you made that decision today, right now, the next second is history. So history does not have to be 10,000 years old. It can start right now. That's what we need to do.
Because the future, people in the future are going to, if they're studying history, they're going to study what you did.
What you did.
That's what you're saying. What did you do?
Yes. So if you can't find it 1,000 years ago because all our institutions were destroyed and you don't have enough archaeological finds to write your history the right way, then start right now to emphasize Pan-African mindset. Let our goal be unity. Once we start or have an educational system that deals with African precepts, African culture and history, and find a way to bring us together, we will now begin to see educational systems and schools that now teach life skills. Because remember, at least in my village, you left your house at a very young age, rites of passage, and you were gone for about 7 years. And in that period of time, that's when you learn life skills. When you graduate, you are married off, land is given to you, and life is good. That's the way it worked. We prepared kids from when they were young, about 7 years old. We prepared them for the future. That's African culture. But once the European came, no. Now you got to go to kindergarten being taught something that is European. This is Bello, this is Bintu, this is a cow, this is a truck. Then you go through all that. Then they start telling you about Mungo Park, discover the Niger. Excuse me, last time I checked, there were people there already before Mungo Park showed up. So here I am in primary school learning that a European discovered my place where I live that has its own history, that had its own government, its own school system, its own everything before they came. Now you're telling me that you discovered me and I'm supposed to write that down when I'm taking my examination, because if I don't write down that a European discovered my village, I will fail. This is the kind of educational system that we have in Africa. So until we start looking inward, like we've all acknowledged in this panel, that we are not telling you not to be Muslim. We're not telling you not to be Christian. Cross-cultural pollination is a good thing. You learn and borrow things from other cultures and add to yours, and things that are not relevant in your culture anymore, you throw it away, but you don't dump the baby out with the bath water.
That's right.
That's right. What we need to do. It's really that simple, but unfortunately, let me just say one thing right quick, and then I'll just hand this whole thing back. And Chiedozie had mentioned it. Dibias Chiedozie. You know, I think it was in 1948, Zeke was the first to ask for the independence of the 15 British colonies within the next 15 years. And he actually had the gumption to do that and the courage to do it. And some people, Africans, thought that this devil, the black man, was not capable of ruling himself. But having said that, we also talked about the fact that the independence happened without the British shooting us and us shooting them to come to an agreement, which is true. But let's not acknowledge all the killing, particularly with the colliery workers and everything else that had happened to us before we got to the point where we were able to broker our independence without violence. Okay, so I just want to throw that out there. But we got the independence, particularly in Nigeria in 1960. We got the chains taken off our limbs, our hands and foot, and around our neck. But we left the other one in our brain, and we were not able to build institutions right after our independence from our colonizers. What did we do? We continued to promote their educational system We continued to parrot them because they understood that the most dangerous weapon in their hands is my mind, is the mind of the oppressed. So they got our minds. The education that we have in Africa, all over Africa, is colonial. It has nothing to do with us. So until we focus back to our primordial core, it's going to be a difficult task ahead.
It's going to be a difficult task. Thank you so much, Dibia Yudi. Very, very thoughtful contribution. Musa, I just want to ask you this question because I was listening to you on Arise TV, I believe it was, as you were being asked certain questions. The gentleman that was asking you questions, I applauded him because he got the message that you were sharing. Okay, he got animated, he got excited, and he wanted to know more, which tells me that he really didn't have all that information before he met you. He was not taught that. He was not really taught African history, the relevance of African history in the development of the mind of our people. But as the conversation got deeper and deeper, he started getting it and he started getting excited. And I started getting excited. I said, wow, this conversation is really going on. I want to ask you, from when you're doing the dialogue, what are you finding, that you can say that based on what these people were taught as children, it's making it difficult for them to fully grasp the direction you're going? Do you notice anyone in that? Because I know you have sessions, quite a number of sessions. I see the videos of what you do. Are you picking up that these individuals are struggling because of the way they were raised academically, spiritually, socially? Is that impacting, as far as you can tell, on how they see their world, how they see Nigeria, how they see you, how they see what you're talking about? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Kumada. This is a very, thank you. Sorry, it was network problem, challenges. Thank God I'm back.
No worries.
So you asked a very pertinent question. I can see from my engagement that in fact that is one of the 5 fundamental questions we're asking that is propelling the conversation. I say, who are we? And I can see that Dibias Ude is asking. I mean, when we started, he started with that kind of question, and it's very, very fundamental question. He said, the first question we asked, who are we as a people? Identity, the tragedy that befalls us is that we don't know who we truly are as a people. And there's no greater tragedy like that can befall any society. So the first question we asked is, who are we as a people? So we try to probe that through, so you can see that people don't know, people don't know who they really are. The identity crisis is the greatest crisis that can see. That I can decipher from my engagement. You don't know who we truly are. If you don't know who you are, there's nothing you can do. In fact, know thyself has become is as old as time. There's nothing, and to know oneself, and that is why our spirituality comes to play. So everything, in short, the first thing is that spirituality. When I mean spirituality, that's why in my engagement I try to tell them that when I mean spirituality, I don't mean Christian. I try to tell them humbly. Of course, me, I'm a Muslim. I try to tell me, of course, even if I'm a Muslim, I'm a realized being. I came to that realization that I am not only anyone that came to that dimension. We know that we are a universal citizen, a cosmic citizen. So me, by God's grace, I come beyond that Muslim. I'm not just a Muslim maybe by accident of birth. I have to go beyond that being a Muslim. And I know, and I go into that dimension of where that universal dimension. So people lack it, even in their so-called Christianity, in their so-called Muslim. Maybe peradventure, maybe I personally, well, since I was young, I devoted myself with meditation. So I quickly got over that aspect, because that identity is not what is taught. So I try to tell them that in any conversation, I try to make it so simple, but I will never elude, this one will never elude me to tell them that the spirituality I'm talking about is not Christianity, it's not Muslim. It goes beyond being a Muslim or Christianity. In fact, in another vein, I try to tell them that what they call spirituality is an intangible aspect of who you truly are. Because it is the unseen, the intangible that give impetus or power to the tangible. Everything that ever is, come, emerge from the within. And that is what education starts from again. Educo, when I say that, I love the root words of meaning of words, etymology. Educo is a Latin word that means to educe from the within. So we have lost that aspect, and those aspects can never be taught in the books, can never be taught in Harvard of this world or any other place of this world. It's not taught. That is what I really mean when I say dialogue with wisdom. But it's so deep that I have to start engaging men engaging any of my engagement in the level that they can understand. But I know that this thing is a consciousness. Consciousness does not have Muslim. It does not have a spiritual or consciousness. Does not have a identity. I mean, does not have a Christianity. It's not race. It's something that everybody has within. And I know that if we keep raising that kind of consciousness, it's going to pervade that the dialogue space of Nigeria, and it will be going inside every person. That is what I know. That is it. No matter, even though they don't understand, there will come a time that consciousness, just like you said, the person that was asking me, I think you meant Okimbaloe in Channels TV. Yeah. It's one of my best interviews because he was flowing. In fact, when I was going now, if I'm going to any of my interview now, of course, that's what I had been doing, but I do it specially. I change the environment spiritually so that I can get the person into that inner realm, because that is where everything is. It's only that there's no how you can tell them. I have to carry that kind of aspect of revelation that I know about my work, about my calling. I have to put it in the aspect of reason so that people can reason with you. If not, they'll be lost. But no matter how I try to let you reason with me, I'll quickly tell you that it is spiritual. It is something that is from the inside. So everybody got to know that a nation that we're calling is a consciousness. So this consciousness will not just come. It has to be reasoned by so people that have reached that dimension of consciousness. In fact, I want to start with National Orientation Agency. I had started that before, but they wouldn't understand it. I said creating a new Nigerian consciousness from cradle. That's what I gave them before. But I now recalling it that creating a new Nigerian consciousness from the womb, because scientifically, when the fetus is about 30. You can about 90 days. You can speak to it. A queen mother, you can attest to that. A mother can speak to a fetus. So I said you can tap your fetus and say the humanity, because I've come to tell them that the driving principle of this, the eternal principle of this, that humanity, the identity we're going to have as a new Nigeria is humanity is life. See the other person that you are human being first, that the breath breathed into us as a human being does not have Igbo, does not have Muslim, does not have Ibira, does not have that breath of life. It is the humanity. Humanity's life is what I told. So a mother can we can translate that into all our dialects. That even when a fetus is like 90 days, a mother can gently tap into the womb and tell, and then that just like in my own Ibira. Queen mother, you can help us in Igbo. That's the humanity's life. In my own Ibra dialect, in Kogi State, you say, Ozobe Henyo, that it is human being that's life. Tap that into that consciousness and tell that baby that when you come to this Ozobe Henyo, Ozobe Hen, so that when he came to life, he will not be seen as that person as his own. He will be seen, in short, the driving philosophy is that you are me, I am you. That is the new Nigerian philosophy that we're selling to them. You are me, I am you. The human person is life. You are me, I am you. I think this one, everybody can understand this. That is truly who we are. That is human being. You don't need any mystic to understand it. In short, in short, that is our originality. So people know it, even though they don't understand it. They don't need to understand it from reading, but because that is your conscience, that is who you are. They will grab it. They will grab it when they hear that enough. They will come to that realization. They will come to that. It's not too much about mystic. They will come to that realization because that is our originality. We are human beings. We are, all of us are who universal being, a cosmic citizen. We are one. It is that oneness, true love, that universal love we're trying to send. In short, we embodied it. People ask me, this is your new Nigeria. I said, he's already here. I say, who is he? I say, I am the new Nigeria. As you see, I am embodiment of that new Nigeria. I do that. I have afflicted myself with that severe self-discipline that are the values of that new Nigeria. In my home, in all my things, all my business, I won't cheat you. I'll see you as myself. I show you love. Everybody is my brother. My child will say, Daddy, we are going to say, hey, Gatesman, how are you, bro? How are you, my brother? How are you, my sister? Everybody's your brother. I say, yes, because we are one. So my son knows that oneness. They know we are oneness. So human being is one. He says one. And so at least let's take from that. Let it start from the, even if I cannot take the whole nation, let it start from my home. If my son will never see another person, my small child, you will never see another person. Say that is who you are. You were one. He is you. You are. So that is. He say it's true. That it's the same blood that. He say yes. I say it's the same blood that flows within us. I say even beyond that blood, it is them that life. He said that if we're in this room now, I tell my son and my children one day, I say as we are in this room now, if you find a way to take away, if you find an avenue to take away oxygen in this room, all of us will die. If you put a Hausa man here, a Brahman here, Christian, a Igbo man, you will die. If you put a Igbo, green man, if there's any green man, if you put a brown man, all of us will die here. So meaning that life that all of us have does not have any coloration. That is all. That is what combines us as a people. In short, God created only one kind of nation, and that is mankind. Mankind is one, and that is the new consciousness we need to establish. That is universal consciousness we need to establish as a people. As a people, in short, that is, and I figured it out. That is the only way we can, and that is a new civilization that we must establish. We must establish a universal civilization. I call it in my meditation. I call it a universal civilization, a civilization that will unify all of the humankind. We are not going to go back to what they did to us because they are slaves. We are not really slaves. The white men are slaves because it takes a slave to enslave. It takes a slave's mind to enslave. We are not really slaves. If you look at our originality, in short, I read that even a black man, even when the so-called when they say slave masters, we still love our slave masters, even when they so-called call us a slave. Meaning that we are here. Black is not a color. We are here before the universe. We are here before anything. We are the originality of the whole world. So we must bring that kind of that is and I figured it out again. I figured it out again that is why we that is why all war you can think in this world I mean now they call it neocolonialism. I said that by God there is nothing that one cannot thrive again because even the whole world we see it. When mother I will share maybe you can share with brother Ude and the other person. That my last the universal civilization. That my last in my column. I'll share it so that please share it with them. So that because that new consciousness is coming now, is nobody. There's a new word that is emerging. There's a new consciousness that is emerging, and the black person must be about it because that is really where we are to establish a civilization, a universal civilization that is an archetype of a divine civilization. That to bring all other persons, even the so-called our colonial masters, they are going to embrace that kind of civilization again. That we are humanity is one, and we have to. That is the only way we can have. In fact, we can have heaven on earth. That is why we are here. Heaven is not. I told my Muslim brother that are close to me because they will say you are doing heresy or you are saying no, I said there's no heaven anywhere. Just like Jesus Christ said. That Jesus Christ pointed. He said, "Heaven is within." He said, "The kingdom of God is within you." What is kingdom? Yes. Is a dimension of. It's a dimension of oneness. Your originality is within you. Your source is within you. Your source is within you. God is you. We are God. We are here as vicegerents to create, not going back to make this.
You say, yes.
We are here to make this Yes. Wonderful. Wow. Thank you. How thoughtful. I think I was a little bit here, but I want to. Yeah.
No, before this thing.
Yes, I want to bring in Dibias.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead. After that, then I'll feel something. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, wonderful, wonderful, Musa. Very
Yes.
inspiring and straight to the point. Thank you.
Musa got me.
Thank you
He's
for
got me
sharing that.
wanting to conquer the world now. I'm ready to conquer the world, man. I'm
I'm
ready to
telling
just
you,
get out
I'm like,
here.
oh my
He's got me
goodness.
fired up. He had me fired up big time.
Ready to go.
I'm humbled.
Dibias
I'm humbled.
Dibias, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Dibias,
Yes.
you are a professor and you're the head of Department of African History and Culture. As you work with your students, what is the weakness that you observe as far as their ability? Because one of the things I noticed is when you have Europeans and Black people, in many cases, not always all the time, our people become a little bit meek, and they don't seem to be able to hold themselves up as proudly, as confidently as their counterparts. From watching your students, what is the weakness that you see that makes you know that, my God, something has not been given to them and they need something? What is it?
Well, I think the essential problem I found with the students is that they are shallow. They are shallow because we are shallow as well. Like Musa is saying, how many of us can operate at the level that he is talking about? Because the question of universal consciousness has been there time immemorial. And the way I see spirituality is simple. It's like the ocean. The ocean belongs to nobody. But you have to tame the ocean your own way. And so, for us to participate in that universal consciousness, we need a methodology, an approach. Now, the Arab world has founded Islam, institutionalized it. It's their culture, but they have put it at the universal level, that you can, through it, attain universalism. China has pushed off Confucianism. If you go to Confucianism, there's a concept of Tao, and it's about universalism. And if you go to India, there's a culture of Brahma, it's a universal consciousness. If you come to Christianity, there's Christ, universal consciousness. If you come to Islam, there is the Ummah, universal humanity. Now, in African culture, we have communalism, which is universal brotherhood. So what are we doing with that? So I, as a teacher of philosophy, my concern is more with the African approach that will take us, that will connect us to that universalism. Because you say he or she who must come to equity must come with clean hands. And to come with clean hands is that you must come prepared. You do not get to universalism in borrowed ropes. So the problem we have today, the African student has, is that the African student is finding it difficult. Difficult because he or she is confused. And this confusion starts from when they are small. Because I was caught off guard when my little son, when today he's now 22, but when he was barely 4, he asked me the question. He said, Dad, say yeah. He said, why is Satan and all the demons black? And all the angels and God, they are Arabs or they are whites or they are Semites or Caucasians. Well, I didn't know how to explain it to him, but I just told him it's a problem of lack of self-identity. And I told him that in my language, and that we have to push up our culture to a universal level. So I myself, I went through that confusion. It is that confusion that led to revolt. Because at a time, I wanted to be a reverend priest. When I escaped that, I now wanted to be a social reverend priest, what you call Opus Dei movement in the Catholic Church. And then at a time, I couldn't do that, so I wanted to be deeper life than Kumuyi. I wanted to be a deeper lifer than Kumuyi. I wanted to be a redeemer than Adeboye. And at a time, I went to Islam. I wanted to understand the nitty-gritty of Islam. Then I went to the Rosicrucian order. And in all of these, I discovered that they are all methodologies, approaches to tap into the universal consciousness. Then I was not bothered with where is the African way. And I started that journey in 2009. And the African way is there. It is there in our various cultures. But what we have not done is that we have not defined who we are. And to start creating bridges across. So that is why in my criticism of Nkrumah's categorical conversion and the ideologies founded by our founding fathers, Azikiwe and neo-welfarism, Awolowo democratic socialism, Nkrumah conscientism, Senghor African socialism, and so on and so forth. And then the closest of them is Nyerere, who came up with Ujamaa, African Brotherhood. And then, of course, Kenneth Kaunda, Jomo Kenyatta with African Humanism. At my PhD level, when I examined all of these ideologies, I discovered they were lacking the African essence. They were more theorizing and agglomerating the philosophies of the colonizers. People praise Awolowo. He came up with mental magnitude, but these are just jargons within the Rosicrucian Digest. So when people praise Awolowo's novel, I said there's nothing novel about all of them, whether it was Nkrumah or Zik or Awolowo. The person that was the most original of all of them was Nyerere, Ujamaa, taken from the Tanzanian language and experience. What mental magnitude is a level you attain. You study that in I think level 7 or 8 in the Rosicrucian order. Voice of reason, all of that, voice of reason, voice of wisdom, were all copied from the Rosicrucian Digest if you are common with their literature. So there was nothing unique about all that. For me, the person who was simple, down to earth, not highfalutin grammar, not trying jargons, Nyerere, Ujamaa, African brother, which is simply communalism. But there was something lacking in that. He left out the spirit. And the spirit he left out was African spirituality. So that was the thing he left out there. And once you try to anchor communalism on a doctrine that is not African, be it Islamic, be it Indian, be it Western, be it any culture, you are not going to achieve communalism. Because we have talked about these over and over. What is it that is unique about the African spirituality that is lacking in other people's spirituality? If you look at African spirituality, it does not talk about dualism. It talks about duality. What's the difference between duality and dualism? Dualism says there are two things, and these two things are contrary, and they are equal. Each one is equal and opposite. So man and woman are equal and opposite. The problem is two things that are equal and opposite. How do we resolve relationship between them? So relationship is either by way of domination or elimination. And so when you are relating with anybody that is a Caucasian or a Semite, from where you have the foundations of Judaism, of Christianity, of Islam, it's either the culture is to dominate or to eliminate. But dualism says there are two opposites, and these opposites are contrary. However, these opposites are incomplete. So there is man is incomplete. There is woman is incomplete. So two incomplete things must necessarily interrelate, which is why the African insists that relationship at the level of gender must be between man and woman. If you are gay, Africans don't like it. They don't want to hear it. If you are practicing lesbianism, they don't want to hear it. Don't distort the natural order. So the foundation of African spirituality is the irreducible two. In other spirituality, you can reduce it to God being a man or God being a woman. But in African spirituality, you cannot reduce God to gender. God is the combination, the fusion of two energies, male and female energies. You find it typical in every typical African spirituality. And so, what our so-called founding fathers ought to have done from beginning was to take us to back to our cultural foundations and empower the cultural institution, so that what you have, for instance, in Iran, the prime minister or president is only political. He is in charge of politics and economy. The real leader is the Shah of Iran. If you go to Israel, the prime minister is only for political economic control. The real owners of Israel are the rabbis. And 1% of Israeli annual budget is devoted to the rabbi. They do nothing but think about the future of Israel within Judaist spirituality. So that through that means you can channel to the universal consciousness. All right. Now, if you go to Mecca, you'll find that the real owner of Mecca is the king and is the custodian of culture. So, Fela has sung all of this. If you go, if you go to every other people, Northern culture, be teacher for them, for their, let us now face ourselves for Africa. Now, all the problems of this one, now they carry, you know, go asking me which ones. And it's also because
he is frozen.
He's frozen.
He's frozen. UD, before he comes back, well, he'll be back. I have a question for you, UD. It's very important that we do all these things that we're saying to help our children to be competitive. We certainly have to incorporate STEM. STEM is not a European concept. It's a general concept that's applicable anywhere. People need to learn about science, about technology, engineering, math, all of that. Okay, those are universal concepts. Some of them represent. Okay, go ahead.
Well,
Oh, he's gone again. So UD, the question that I have for you is, what do you think is beyond the fact that some of our ancestors really did kind of went the other way, and instead of promoting, who we are to our children, but what are some of the challenges that you think is causing us not to prepare our youth properly? Is it that we don't have? Is it the infrastructure deficits, economic constraints? What are some of those things that you think, beyond the fact that foreign religions have played havoc, so to speak? What other things do you think is contributing to our inability to focus our children in learning? What do you call it? Nature, national pride, preparedness in the event of. There's so much I want to say.
Well, I see what you're saying.
When you have, when our children are not prepared, the impact is not just self-esteem challenges. I feel there's also inability to be able to handle emergencies. Okay, because they don't have what the Europeans have, so to speak, and then they just disintegrate. They don't know what to do. So what are beyond religion? What else do you think is playing a role in making it very difficult for us to prepare our young people?
Well, this conversation is about as difficult as separation of church and state.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Yeah. Because church and state, whether it's conscious or subconscious, work hand in hand to govern and control behavior, to make sure that people behave a certain way. Because if you're totally dependent on legal means, right? If you kill somebody, you can go to jail or they'll kill you. Those things are physical. Well, it doesn't stop everybody totally from doing anything. So you need another way of controlling human behavior. Enter human consciousness, enter religion. So once religion is established in you, or level of spirituality or whatever, and now thou shalt not kill, which is common amongst all religions, is now the same thing as if you killed somebody in civic law, you go to jail, you face a firing squad, or you get executed. It's also the same thing as if you're a murderer, when you die, you go to heaven. When you die, you go somewhere, there's punishment, crime and punishment, from the physical perspective of incarceration of death to spiritual side of you. What happens life after death? Every religion has that. We missed an opportunity in the fight for independence, not just in Nigeria, but in a whole lot of other cultures. And I do agree with Dibias Dozier, with Julius Nyerere was really, 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 I've read some of his stuff, and he was really a true Pan-Africanist. He really was, Julius Nyerere. I have so much respect. But a part of Nigerian history that a lot of people are not aware of is the fact that not only did people like Zeke understand that we needed physical emancipation from the British, but also needed mental emancipation. And thereafter, the National Church of Nigeria and the Cameroon was formed. During this fight of independence, nobody really talks about that. When you talk about Nigerian fight for independence, nobody really talks about the other side of it, where we have the National Church of Nigeria and the Cameroons and the Okmanas, and all these people were part of it. Now, Nigeria got its independence in 1960, and in 1963, the Oba of Benin, who was the spiritual head of the Ido National Church, joined forces with the National Church of Nigeria. At that time, Ahaike Okonyoha was his high chief priest. They joined forces together to form Gordianism, Chiism, which is the movement that you see today. So there was an effort to try to, work on the mind of the African and emancipate our minds. But somehow, right after we got the independence, we went back to the same ideas that kept us marginalized in the first place for political reasons, because there was a puppet master. Whatever wealth we feel that we had naturally in Nigeria, somebody had to buy it. And who was going to buy it? It wasn't the Canadian. The Canadian wasn't going to buy our oil. The Canadian, the Ghanaian was not buying cocoa from Nigeria. The Europeans were buying that stuff. So they had certain criteria, they had certain rules, they had certain things that you had to abide by for you to be able to be independent economically, you think. Because if you don't have anybody to buy what you produce, you cease to exist. They will continue to dominate you and get their hands on your resources. So there was an attempt. But unfortunately, for these economic reasons, and then of course politically, Islam comes in, we need to dip the Quran down to the ocean. And the truth is not being told. Muhammad was not from Cameroon. Jesus was not Liberian. Jesus was not from Sudan. He wasn't a Zulu. He had nothing to do with us. The miseducation of the parent, the grandparent, the great-grandparents who miseducated the grandparent, who miseducated the parent, who miseducated the child, who is going to miseducate the grandchild and the great-grandchildren, and so on and so forth, and nobody ever tells our story. So until we have leadership, both in the private front and also in government through what we call imperial patronage, where the government actually supports things that are African, where the government understands that you cannot build a castle on sand. Any tree that doesn't have deep roots will soon kill over. Nobody's saying that you cannot be Muslim. Nobody's saying you can't be Buddhist. Nobody's saying you can't be Christian in Africa. You can be anything you want to, because part of Chiism is, I believe, that every human has the right to worship God in the way they understand best without bitterness. But collectively, we must agree privately and also in leadership that biri can biri, live and let live, means that Africans also have the rights to practice their culture in Africa without being shamed and getting the same level of support and respect that the Christians and the Muslims and the Buddhists expect us to give to them. That's all we're asking. Coexistence, unity, unified. You could be Muslim, but you could work as a nationalist for the best interest of the country or the community, whatever your persuasion may be, you know, politically, religiously. I remember here in the United States, you know, at least in the 80s when I came here, I mean, the Democrats and the Republicans were night and day, but when it came to the interest of the American, they worked together. People like Tip O'Neill, who worked so well together with, believe it or not, Ronald Reagan. That kind of unity, that kind of nationalism that the United States had maybe in the 80s does not exist anymore. Everybody is now MAGA, Republican, Democrat, black, white, red, green. Find every reason to separate us as opposed to finding things that we have in common, which is our citizenship, which is our love for the country and trying to build it. I wish you do the same thing in Africa. So until through imperial patronage, we're able to foster the kind of education that promotes African culture, spirituality, and history. It's going to be a hard road to trudge along. That's my
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Again, let me please apologize because the internet here is not doing very well. It comes in and out, so I seem like I keep freezing. So do forgive me. I regret that that's happening. But I do have this question for three of you before we leave. I'll start with Musa. Musa, you live in you're in Abuja. Am I right?
Yeah.
Musa,
yes, Queen Mother.
You're in Abuja.
Yes,
and where else have you lived? You lived in Abuja, and you lived where else? Where did you live before? Can you hear me?
He looks frozen.
It looks like he's frozen.
Yeah.
Musa? Oh, okay. Well, he'll come back
frozen.
in. Yeah. Dibias Dozie, where you live in Lagos now, right?
Sure.
And where else did you live before you moved to Lagos?
Before we moved to Lagos, live variously at Ilorin of Kaba, Egbe, Ibadan.
Okay. Now, based on all those places that you've lived, is there anywhere that you can say is a little bit more progressive in terms of what our children were learning where you were? Is there anything is there any distinction you can say, well, when I lived in Ilorin, I noticed that children were this, blah, 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 blah. And now where I am, I notice that children are, you know, do you see a difference in terms of how children are being manipulated, is the word really, based on the culture?
In all of these, both a student and now a teacher, what I can see is more of foreign imposition. And
in what part? Where? What particular
in Ilorin, of what is dominant is Islam. But the Christians, and then the Christians are trying to make their own presence known, which is why you find churches establishing schools, and from schools they try to establish universities. So you see churches want to catch them young from primary, secondary school, and so on and so forth. If you escape them from primary and secondary school, you can't escape them at the tertiary level. So all of these are not just for education, it's for proselytization. And I remember the greatest mistake made by the Nigerian leadership was to give back schools to the missionaries. Gowan took back schools from the missionaries, and there was a national orientation for all students based, and then that was when history was taught, even though some of the contents of history was wrong, like teaching about Mungo Park and the Slessor and all that. But there was this national consciousness. But when the politicians came, the politicians, beginning with those who we thought they were for the people thought they were for them then, people like our current president, started talking about giving back schools back to missionaries just to win votes. Then I remember that the Muslim leader in Nigeria then came forward to say that for a multi-ethnic and multi-cultural, multi-religious country like Nigeria, it is wrong, or that it was wrong to give back schools to the missionaries. It will lead to divided minds. But the Christians countered. They needed back their schools because they want to control the minds. So since then, it has been a ding-dong affair between Islam and Christianity in colonizing the mind, because the Christians came up with a lot of programs. Sunday, in fact, Pentecostal, all the churches, they have programs in the churches every day. And they colonize the mind in the church, they colonize the mind in the schools. So the Muslims have to fight back by bringing up a lot of programs and trying to contemporarize Islam, so that even in the Islamic world that was peaceful has been thrown into violence or competition by the Christian world. All of these, what is suffering is the African culture. And the question of the African personality has been swept aside. And so today, what you have are parents protesting, just like we are protesting. We are discussing here on this platform. Parents are protesting that there's little of in our education that is African. There's little in our spirituality that is African. If there's anything African in our education curriculum and in our spirituality is Jara, Meji, Tintene, that's what it is. And so no nation grows that way. But to sum up, what we really ought to do is to go back to our cultures and find the affinity amongst our culture and the concept of our spirituality. Because I know that among the Igbo, anyhow we like to fight, once you talk about Ofonogu and you bring it out, everybody will cower. If you go among the Yoruba, anytime you talk about Ifa, Afa, Iha, and so on and so forth, everybody will find a Santa Claus. Now, there's something that holds us in common. That thing which you call Afa, Ifa, it's common in all our languages. And it's about universal consciousness. That's what we're supposed to key in as a nation, and then bring Islam into it, bring Christianity into it. Along the night to be enriched, because if your spirituality is to be enriched, there must be dialectics of welcoming all that spirituality. That way your own spirituality grows. But as it stands now, our problem is that we don't have an African foundation for harnessing other people, harnessing the various spiritualities that are bombarding us left, right, and center. That's what we need to address.
Yes, thank you. Fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful. Musa, same question. What are you finding? What is the difference you're finding where you came, where you lived before you moved to Abuja? What is the difference in terms of what your observation, how our children, are being educated? Are you noticing any difference from where you were to where you are now? What can you share?
There's no much. I was just like Dibias Chidoze mentioned in Lauren Alpha. We have we have that commonality there. I was actually born in Ilorin, Kwara State. I'm from Kogi State, Ibira. I was born in Kwara State, Ilorin. I do go to Offa 2. Then later Lagos. Then my in the some parts, though few in the north, but when the base knowledge, when the foundation, just like Dibias said, when that base is is faulty, there's nothing, you cannot build anything on. There's nothing we can do. We can't build something on nothing until we are able to harness. In fact, I've been thinking, meditating, acting, going, well, how do I do this? How do we do this? What is my own contribution in doing exactly what Dibias just said? Because that is the foundation. How do I, growing up in Ilorin, of course, a Muslim family, I went to my, permit me to say this little story, I think I'll be on it to answer the question, Queen Mother. I went to our, to Islamic school. Very, very, of course, I later realized that I'm an ancient soul, I'm an ancient being. I've come this way because I was the only one that, among my peers, I was the only one that came to this. So I knew later in life that I have come this path before. If not, it's not easy. Because when the Islam came, they came with their own spirituality. Look at Usman Dan Fodio. They came, not the bringers of this religion, not Muhammad, not what Muhammad taught per se. It is what you do with that. It now later used as an instrument of control, which is not supposed to be. Because in spirituality, there's nothing like African spirituality. I want us to get it. I think all of us is because we want to show our own tradition, the flavor of our own tradition in it. When you annihilate the physicality and you go into that realm, there's nothing like Africa, the African spirituality there now. There's nothing like European spirituality there. Spirit is spirit. Consciousness is consciousness. There's nothing like that. So when I tender my book, my little textbook before my Malam, that time, there's something he said. I'll say it in Arabic, then I'll just quickly. There's something written in that book that one sheikh wrote. He said, "Farifuni kabula antabuduni, faman lam yarif fakayfa yabuduni." It's an Arabic text that said, "Know me before you worship me. If you don't know me, how could you worship? How can you worship me?" In fact, they ended up looking for me because I wouldn't go to that. That was the end of my of my knowledge. I said, so God, you can know God? In short, they ended up looking for me, just like I said, because I wouldn't go to that school again. Because I've learned everything.
It's frozen again.
I'm very, very young, maybe 8, 9. I'll be going out in a secluded place. I don't even know what I was doing. Later, it was when I was getting old, of course, in this ethereal realm, in this phenomenal realm, of course, the age here matters too. So when I was getting old, still that meditation, and I came to that fully realization that, yes, you have to know. And I know that there's no distance. It is not Muhammad that brought that religion that I'm really, because I went into the mystic part, the Arif, the Sufi. In the West, they call it Sufi. That is the mystical part of Islam. I now knew that there's no barrier, there's no duality in the nature of reality. God is within me, and I have to realize after self-annihilation, I have to come into that reality of nothingness. I became all and all. This is very deep. This is just what mouth can. And I discovered that everybody in their own aspect of spirituality have a window, have a portal to reach this. So there is no, all my experiences are just the same all over that. Everyone needs, even though you are a Christian, they need to teach that. Just like I love the way Dibias Chidozie coined it. So we need to enrich our own, but you first of all have to come to that realization or within us. So we have to find a way of bringing that that physicality into that spirituality, then enriching it with all other ones, because it is not Islam that will tell you who you are. It's not Muhammad that will tell you who you are. It is not Jesus Christ or any other. It's not Buddha that will tell you who you are. They are the Buddha. Buddha means Buddha. That somebody that Buddha is a word that simply means he passed the intellect. That you are able to move from the physical realm and access the inner dimension. Then you became like Buddha, like you became that Hakikati Muhammadiyah, that the real Muhammadiyah. The real Muhammadiyah is not that person that was born in Mecca. That's why he started from cave. He went to cave to realize himself. So how many of these are able to for us to teach this? How many Christianity? But thank God now, just like I said, the consciousness is coming because you cannot stop it. It's a new world now. Even the universe, the new earth is here. There's nothing. That consciousness is here. No one can stop it when it comes. So anyone that reaches this level is going to excel. Is going to excel. And I know that it's coming. Just like why I knew is that now this place I am now, from my experience, I knew I come across, and of course there's no accident by nature. The light bearers, the light bearers are coming together. Yes, the people that raise the new consciousness are coming, though not new, but we just call it new because it's the original consciousness, are coming together now. There's a Christian brother that we are now working together, that we said through his own Christianity. In fact, though few people are going, some people are now leaving their church now to go to that my friend now. We call it a new fine friend now, because he is teaching Christian that. Then I encourage him and tell him we do converse. That young person and I, because he said, why are we saying the same thing from the same? Even though you are a Muslim, we're saying. I said, spirituality does not have coloration. If we are saying it, no Christ can save you. Christ demonstrated that accept that inner dimension, that you become the Christ-like. When I enter, when in my spiritual journey, when I enter the mystery of Christ's sanctity, I knew that everything, there's nothing like that. He wants us to access that dimension where you become Christ-like, that you are going to save yourself. And he even told us that we can do more than he did. That entity that came, we can do more than what he did that time. And that is it. So in all our religion, I know that we are going to have somebody like that, just like my own religion too. Although very few, I have few people following me. They have reached this kind of consciousness, and that is how we should be coming. That young man I'm talking in Christendom, people are coming so much to him now, because he's teaching that. He's telling them that no, you don't need it. No one. There's no one person fell. He said the Adam fell. No, there's nothing like falling. It is you. It is ignorance that is your own falling. So you need to pick up your own. You need to pick up your own cross now. And access that. You have to kill yourself to yourself. That is it. Is to kill your own lower self and enter that ego. It is that ego that has permeated all the religion, using it as an instrument of control to some folks in the world. Using that, that's supposed to edify us, that's supposed to be spirit. So I think going forward is just in answering your question. In answering your question, directly, it's all the same throughout. My experience is that all are the same throughout, except this foundational, which is the spirituality, is addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Wow, you guys are really into it. Now, Judy, same question. Do you see a difference? And we only have. I apologize. We have just. You just have about a couple of minutes. Do you see the difference between the education you got in Nigeria and what's happening here? Just very briefly, what are your thoughts? What our children got in Nigeria, is there a difference in what they're getting here?
Well, for me, it was all complex. I'm just going to kind of just briefly, touch on something right quick. I always felt different growing up as a child because we were fortunate to have Ahain as our dad and Nno as our mother. So It was almost like we were shielded from childhood from the religious ignorance that is out there, and we grew up with the live and let live, sense of a spiritual, behavior and appreciation for our fellow human beings, and understanding that diversity is divine. There's a reason why you have different kinds of roses, but in the end, they're all roses, right? We all don't like the same things. Some people like tall people, some people like short people, some people like fat people, some people like skinny people, some people like Rolls Royce, some people like Cadillac. But they're both cars. They're going to get you from point A to point B. Dogs, German Shepherd, Bulldog, Alsatian, Collie, a Shepherd dog, all kinds of dogs. But they're all dogs. What about cats? Lions, tigers, okay, the house cat, the ocelot, the leopard, the mountain lion, puma, jaguars. But they're all cats. All trees are not the same. The redwood, Iroquois tree, all kinds of trees. The grasses ain't the same. The insects are not the same either. This is core African understanding of how the world works. I was fortunate to be shielded from foreign religion. So I grew up knowing myself who I am, and always felt different, even with my friends, to the point that I didn't have certain conversations with them because I just looked at them as they wouldn't understand. And I wasn't mad at them because they wouldn't understand. I just said it wasn't their fault because they're only going by what their parents told them. They're only going by the when they were in a kindergarten or elementary school, and they're singing to them, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. You're looking at friends that got it from the house, got it from their parents, got it from the society, got it in school, got it in church, and in the end, they're left with nothing. They're disconnected from their past. So until we have conversations like we're having right now, have institutions that are now promoting African stuff and with some kind of imperial patronage, involvement of a government, there may be at some point, things will change. But right now, unless you're in Burkina Faso, I don't know.
Well, I hear you. I just want to thank everyone who joined us today. Thank you, Dibias, and thank you, our special guest, Musa. Thank you for being here today and sharing your wonderful thoughts with us. I hope it looks like I'm frozen again. I hope you can hear me. But I want to thank everyone who joined us. Mecca, Namdi, Zainab, whoever else I didn't call. Thank you all for being here today. Remember to like and share this video. You don't know who's going to benefit from this. Thank you all. Thank you, and look forward to having you come back and join us next Sunday. Remember, we have these Chism Live is every other Sunday. So you're not going to see Chism Live this coming Sunday, but the next Sunday. But you'll be able to see Ndumodu's show, and we're going to certainly will alert you when we have the Ndumodu show, and we have the King of Thoughts and African Calendar and African AI. So we've got all kinds of things coming to Chism Network. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to another exciting episode of the Chism Live. Thank you, Dibias.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure. It was beautiful. It was great. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Nonetheless, I want to